All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for everyone who joined. Welcome to the Seller Showdown webinar. My name is Sam. I'm from 8Fig. I'll be hosting today. We're super pumped about this. It's surely going to be an exciting event featuring a few e-commerce veterans from both Shopify communities, Amazon communities, each defending their platform in different ways, surely to bring lots of action and insightful takeaways for all sellers, all attendees. So stay tuned. We're going to be covering topics such as considerations for launching your store on either platform, marketing tactics and nuances that come along with each platform, as well as supply chain hurdles and considerations that you need to take into consideration and eventually overcome when you're starting a store on either platform. So without further ado, let's get ready to rumble. I'm going to kick it off here with the tale of the tape for our premiere event today. In one corner, representing sellers of Amazon, weighing in at collectively, I don't know, maybe over 300 pounds, something like that, standing at average heights, I'm sure, the gurus behind awesome gifts on Amazon, Ryan Sherrard and David Lang of Devan Strategic. Thank you so much, guys, for joining. We're super excited to have you. For a little bit of background on Devan, the duo of David and Ryan, they're two Canadians currently living in Munich, Germany. They've been Amazon sellers since around 2020, if I'm not mistaken, right around that area. And then, despite having no previous experience in e-commerce, with David working as a commercial airline pilot and Ryan as a molecular biologist, they were able to scale their Amazon business to 7 figures in less than 2 years. So that's some pretty impressive growth, and they have some unique strategies behind it. What's even more impressive than that is David and Ryan recently sold their business for a multi-million-dollar exit and now aim to help others scale their own businesses through their coaching and advisory practice with Devan Strategic. So thanks again, guys, for joining. We're super excited to have you. Now moving on to the opposing corner, representing Shopify, weighing in at, I'm not really sure how much, I'm not even going to guess, but standing at probably a very tall height, since he was a former D1 basketball player. So the man who helps to keep gamer adrenaline pumping, Jacob Johnson of Glitch Energy. Thanks so much for joining. We're also equally as excited to have you on here representing the Shopify community. For more background on Jacob, being the co-founder of Glitch Energy, Jacob launched this brand as a healthier, premium alternative to incumbent energy supplements in the market. Those that just rely heavily on high caffeine doses, other filler ingredients, and things like that. Well, Jacob brought Glitch to the market to incorporate other healthier compounds and bring some more interesting flavors into the mix and really bring the brand to life, which he succeeded in. And a fun fact about Jacob and his co-founders is that they were able to maintain vast ownership of their business and turn down some VC funding offers to pursue a growth plan with 8Fig. So thank you, Jacob. And as an expert in influencer marketing and SMS marketing, we're excited to have him on today's webinar to talk about his successes with Glitch and Shopify, and maybe even some of his failures, but we'll get into that. All jokes aside, guys, we're really looking forward to this. You guys are just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to e-commerce. We're really glad to have you on here. Some of the topics that we're going to explore, like which platform's best for different folks, is going to be really insightful. But before we begin, I'm just going to ask the audience, all attendees, to answer just a quick few questions in a poll that should show up in 1 sec. There it is. Looks like it's live. Please take 10 to 15 seconds, just answer this, just so we know who we're talking to and get to know our audience a little bit better, and then we'll move on.
Should we guess what's going to come out on top?
Certainly can try.
Bet it's Amazon.
Good stuff. Yeah, probably. We'll see.
Sam, I was kind of hoping for a Bruce Buffer intro at some point there.
Let's get ready to rumble. I mean, I don't know. That's I think
that's coming though, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, well, I mean, we got some other neat features coming in. But anyway, all right. Thank you for those who answered the poll. We can go ahead and get started. So we're going to kick it off with our first round. Ooh. Our first topic of the day. Yeah, there we go.
There it is.
So let's kick it off. So starting your store, launching your store on either Amazon or Shopify. So to kick this one off, I'd really like to hear from Jacob in the glitch camp first. So Jacob, if you will, please take us back to the beginning. When you launched Glitch, what was your experience like building your brand on Shopify's platform? What sort of challenges did you face when first starting out?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we pretty much use Shopify because it was the biggest player in the market at the time, like in the easiest that I thought was the easiest to jump on, and just get a product live and sell it through an e-commerce store, right? And so that was it really. So we had a product idea, and then my partner Tyler, he's a YouTuber in the gaming space with a little over 8 million subscribers, and approached him with the idea. And really we loved the product, we wanted to get it to market, and what was the fastest way to do that? And really Shopify was the most streamlined that we saw. And so that's pretty much it, really. Like it was that simple. I would say it's just like it was easiest to get to market. Now looking back, I may change that strategy a little bit, knowing, if we didn't have a big audience through Tyler, I think that would be a little bit different story. But that's why we pursued Shopify early on.
Interesting. And I know you guys, experienced some pretty significant hyper growth when you started Glitch brand. Were there any challenges that came along with that growth on Shopify that you felt were unforeseen and had to navigate kind of on the go?
Yeah, I think at a high level, big difference between Shopify and Amazon, I'm sure Ryan and Dave can relate to this as well, is you got a lot more control with Shopify of how your store looks, your customer data, etc. But there's also a pretty steep learning curve in like getting a website live, making sure that you have a page that is designed to convert versus like look really nice, right? And like a lot of people just starting out, I would say, they want to make the coolest looking website possible, but at the end of the day, if you don't have really bold headlines and call to actions and really clear buy buttons, that like the design doesn't really matter. And that's coming from me, where I've been a pretty big stickler on how our brand presence looks visually, and our branding in general, and our packaging. But at the end of the day, like you have to make it really simple for people to buy. So there was a little bit of a learning curve there for sure. And we actually onboarded with Shopify Plus, which looking back may or may not have been the best decision. It was, we definitely paid a premium for that. But ultimately we had like a launch engineer that walked me through a lot of stuff. And then I could contact support, their phone number, any time of the day, get somebody on the line to fix an issue with checkout, or fix an issue with how I want this to be listed on our product page, etc. So I would say that's probably the learning curve of making sure that your website, like with Amazon, and I'm a little bit naive because we don't sell on Amazon, but I feel like it's a little bit more streamlined there, where you're on Amazon, you've got your product page. There's some nuance with how you set up your product page there, I'm sure, and the reviews and all of that. But with Shopify, it's basically like fully custom. Like you just do whatever you want to do, but that comes with some challenges as well.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean that might be a pretty good segue to moving to the Amazon sellers in the group with the van. I'd love to hear your guys' take on Shopify versus Amazon, and kind of commenting on what Jacob had to offer. Like what was your experience like launching on Amazon versus like a D2C platform like Shopify? What sort of unforeseen challenges came along with that, and how did your experience differ from something like Jacob's?
Right. So I think when I started the business, because we didn't have any background in e-commerce, going on it or going through that alone by being fully independent and, having to design my own website and stuff kind of threw me, scared me a little bit, to be honest. And the reason why I was so attracted to the Amazon FBA model was the fact that I would be able to do this alone. So when I started the business, Ryan had not joined the team yet. I originally started the business with my wife, and eventually replaced my wife with Ryan, just for the business though, And so when I started it, I'm like, okay, I'm going to be doing this with my wife. It's going to be like a fun side project, a side hustle. I wanted to see, can I sell a product? I just wanted to make a physical product, get it sourced, and sell it online. So then I started looking at the hurdles and the barriers to entry. And when I heard about Amazon FBA, that's when I got really excited. I realized I wouldn't need any employees. I wouldn't have to create my own website. I would need some really nice photography of my product, which I'd be able to do. And I'd be able to kind of piggyback and then at the same time launch on the largest marketplace worldwide. And that's why we kind of, just shared the graph. And it just goes to show you once again, like Amazon, this is from June 2022, has like 38% of the entire e-commerce space. It's absolutely massive. And just to go back to like that little analogy of like throwing stuff against the wall and just hoping something sticks, I think that was my first, strategy when it came to business. However, I did learn pretty early on that it's not that simple and that, you can't get away with doing just anything because there is so much competition on Amazon. You actually are going to need some strategy and some knowledge behind it. And, once we had our first product launch, which was kind of a dud, and that's where Ryan came in too. He saw me struggling. And as a friend, he's like, hey, let's try to figure this out together. And then together we really dove down and said, okay, let's try to figure out what is this algorithm that everyone's talking about, because essentially the beauty of Amazon is all it is there's this established platform, and the only really rule is that if you figure out the algorithm, you can get that free rent essentially. And some of the
as a scientist, I just heard algorithm and I was like, I'm in.
He's like data. and what we sorry, go ahead, Ryan.
No, I was just going to go back to a point that Jacob said earlier, which was, I think if you come in and you're starting your business with a huge following, then you're looking at Shopify, you're looking at running, essentially keeping control of your own website and leveraging those customers. I think when you don't have that, like Dave did when he started, like Amazon looks really attractive, just to Dave's point, the barrier to entry is much lower, and you're bringing your product to Amazon. Amazon is then bringing the customer to you. So it doesn't matter if you have that large following or not.
And to be honest, like when I started, like my objective was just to make money. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. It was like, I wanted to sell a product online. I didn't care what I was selling. I mean, as a pilot, like, one of my favorite movies is Top Gun, obviously. And, and he talked about, if you screw up one more time, you're going to be flying rubber dog shit out of Hong Kong for the rest of your career as a cargo pilot. Right. But literally I would have sold, if it was profitable, rubber dog shit on Amazon. That's the strategy I had starting. And because of that, I didn't really care too much about my brand at the beginning or the branding. But that is something, that's very tricky on Amazon, is that if you do have that unique brand and brand story you want to tell, you're not able to customize your listing page. Every listing page on Amazon looks the same, right? So it's very hard to get your own fonts. I mean, you can't get your own font on there. You can't have that style like glitch. I absolutely love your website, and you can tell it's like a gamer product from the get-go. You get your product on Amazon, well, it's going to look the same like maybe any other supplement. So it's a bit trickier to explain to your user that this is for gaming. But you're on your website, Shopify, that you created. I know what it's for.
Yeah. And like a lot of people, just to remind people on Amazon, you don't own that listing. You make an offer on that listing, but you do not own that listing. You make suggestions to Amazon's catalog, and Amazon might accept it. And a lot of people, we see when people are setting up new products and launching new products, they're filling out these back end fields as if it's just, nonchalant and like, I'll just put this in there and put that there. And they don't realize that a lot of the time those get locked in for the product's life, and you can never change that again, or changing it is extremely difficult. And so it's just, coming back that you don't own that listing, Amazon does, and you can merely make suggestions.
And even if you're the brand owner, anyone can sell on your listing, because it's not your listing. You give all images and video rights to Amazon. It's their listing, and anyone who has that product can sell on that listing. It's a different concept.
I mean, like just recently, like we're working with a client. I wanted to merge a couple of products together, and the catalog just wouldn't let me. It just wouldn't. It's like you locked in the color as this. You are not allowed to change the color. I'm like, but it's our product, So you have these moments of just realizing the beast that you're up against and how difficult it can be sometimes. But all in all, like Amazon does bring a huge, customer base right to your front step. And they're there with an intent to buy. So at the end of the day, you really can't complain.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it represents a very interesting dynamic between, the guests that we have on today, right? Jacob had a business idea, wanted to create, had community to bring behind it, went to a D2C platform like Shopify to build his brand. You guys wanted to be businessmen, had a product in mind, went to Amazon, the biggest marketplace, to kind of get it done. So it's a really interesting dynamic, and really appreciate your guys' answer there.
One thing I'll add to that too is if you have a one
Please.
product, one SKU, you're launching a brand with just literally one product, which keeping it like simple scales at the beginning for sure. And so keeping it as simple as possible makes sense. You should be on Amazon and also on Shopify just to clear the air there. Because Shopify, like you're going to pay I think like $30 a month to just get on Shopify and get a branded page. And like best case scenario is your product really hits on Amazon, goes viral. Maybe people start creating content of it, start searching keywords, and then your Shopify site actually shows up on Google too. So then you can start to get customer data. But anyways, don't have to go into detail. We wanted to clear that up.
Well, I think that's a valid point to kind of go on in detail. If you don't mind, I want to spend 2 minutes on that.
Go ahead.
It's like the chart at the bottom. It's interesting because like we pulled this, and it's a report from Jungle Scout, right? And they release this annual report every year about Amazon advertising, and they provided some really insightful data. So they said that most people, when they begin their search, like 63% of people will actually use Amazon to search for their products, right? So if my daughter has a birthday coming up, instead of Googling a gift for her, I might actually start that search on Amazon, but it doesn't mean I'm going to buy on Amazon. So what I might do is I find this really neat product that I like for my daughter's birthday, and I'm going to go see if that brand, do they have their own website? Can I get it cheaper somewhere else? You know, is there a better offer maybe somewhere? So, but Amazon in itself is a search engine. And I think if that's what we realize as we're starting our journey to sell on Amazon, that it's a search engine. It's not real, it's a marketplace, but it's intuitively, it's a search engine with people having a buyer intent. They want to buy it, but they're just looking for products to buy. And that'll kind of tie into the next, couple slides as well.
Yeah. And one, we had a question come in on Q&A, and quickly before we move on to the next segment to kind of keep things flowing. But I think it would be a good time to answer this because it's kind of appropriate. And this goes out to the Devan guys. What advice do you have for sourcing products / selecting the best product for Amazon?
Brian, you want to take this one or?
Yeah, sure. I mean, my expertise is not in sourcing. Like I joined Dave's business when he had already sourced the product from, the manufacturer. But what we learned from that first product is your product needs search volume and keywords behind it. That was why the first product was a failure. It was a well-made, high quality product, but absolutely no one was searching it. No one was going to the search bar on Amazon and typing in exactly that product. So we had to go up after some broader, words that loosely were relevant to our product. And then your conversion rate is never really going to be there. You're going to get like single digit sales a day, maybe. And so it's just a struggle. So I really would stress keyword research. And I think it's never too early to start diving into keyword research. There's tons of tools out there now, some first party on Amazon, lots of third party solutions as well. So keywords.
Yeah, and what I would add is like you can simplify it as well if you don't want to dive in. If you're starting your Amazon journey and you don't want to pay a subscription to, let's say, Jungle Scout, Helium 10, Zone Guru, if you have an idea for a product and you type it into Amazon, and let's say you're looking for a shower, like a floor mat, right? So you put that into the Amazon search result. If on the first page of Amazon, most of the products are shower floor mats, but one of them is like a sponge or one of them is like a towel. Well, there's still room on that first result page for more shower floor mats because it hasn't been fully taken up yet. So that would kind of be something in the background that you can manually do. Is like, I have an idea. The product already exists on Amazon, so people are looking for it. So without a tool, I know they're looking for it, but there's room on page one for me. Then that would be a good strategy to say, okay, I could maybe launch that as well and compete.
Yeah, very good point.
Nice. Awesome. All right, guys, that was a great round. We're going to move on to the next one. Round number 2.
Love it.
Hopefully nobody gets annoyed with that by the end of this, but anyway. Another really interesting topic for this round, and it is marketing your e-com store. So on Amazon versus Shopify, the nuances and different strategies and things like that. So keeping the beat with Devan while I have you guys here, if you guys could tell us and tell the audience a little bit more about marketing tactics for your products, that would be fantastic. Like, how did you think about marketing and branding for your products on Amazon? what marketing channels did you find most effective? How did you get it in front of the audience in an efficient manner on Amazon? Please elaborate.
So honestly, most of our attention, and I think, when a lot of people are starting out, the first thing they go to is Amazon PPC. Your campaign manager in Amazon, you have a variety of campaigns and ad types and creatives and videos to add. So you can really just start diving in and creating these campaigns to drive your sponsored placements in front of people's eyes. So I think that's where we start. And that's, still 80-90% of our advertising focus. Amazon is notoriously difficult to track external traffic coming to Amazon. You can drive Google ads, Facebook, Pinterest, whatever, what have you, but it's difficult to track those and know if they're converting or not. Whereas PPC is internal in Amazon, you're getting that data right on that dashboard. So, and this image that we have here just demonstrates how important Amazon PPC or advertising has become. So if you take a look at this image in the middle, that's that whole strip there is an overview of what page one of a search for, I think, garlic press looks like, and in yellow are highlighted all of the sponsored placements that are on page one. And you can just see how much of that page is yellow. And we've blown up, the top few rows there on the side. You can see like the top row is sponsored, nearly the entire second row. Finally, you get organic, into the second and third rows, and then more sponsored. And it's changing Amazon to more of a pay-to-play platform where people, used to feel so good when you were ranked in the top 10, top 14, top 30. But now, being in the top 30 might mean you're on page 2. Being in the top 10 might mean you're halfway down page 1. It's no longer I'm organically ranked number 1. Everyone's seeing my product. It's like, no, they're seeing 10 products before they see yours. So if you want to be the first product that's put in front of people's eyes, you have to pay. And when everyone starts driving towards, PPC as a way to get their product in front of people's eyes, cost per clicks go up, competition for these placements. So it's becoming a pay-to-play platform, it feels like, on Amazon.
And that's not just necessarily a bad thing, though, for people starting out. So what I absolutely loved about Amazon right from the get-go, it blew my mind that I could, as a brand new business owner, this small guy in the player, I developed this product, I'm just to it, and I can have a seat at the table from day one, right? So imagine you're like a soccer player, right? And it's a World Cup finals, and it's the biggest game of the century. And they're like, hey, you've never played soccer before, but if you pay us enough, we'll put you on the starting squad. That's what Amazon PPC is, right? If you just start and say, look, I'll pay $5 top of search, as long as it's someone relevant to the product you're selling, obviously, right? So if you're selling boxing gloves and you try to get listed on the top of Apple iPhone earpods, you're not going to be shown. So it has to be relevant to the product that you're showing, but they'll give you a chance at it, which is absolutely insane for a new product launch, right? So that's one of the plus sides, that you have, as a new product, a chance to play amongst the big guys. And with a point that Ryan was mentioning about, pay to play, a lot of these, organic rankings, get pushed further down. I think that's why it's important for product selection. And that kind of ties in with the question before, is to find a product where people may not be as reluctant to scroll a bit, right? So like we call it the gas factor, the give a shit factor, right? If it's a wedding product, people are spending the time to find a perfect wedding dress. They're going to scroll for 20 days to find the dress, right? If it's maybe a gift, or if it's something for your kids, you're going to pay a bit more attention. If it's a garlic press like this, I might literally just say, you know what, it has good reviews and it's a decent price, and I don't have time to go shopping for a garlic press. I'm going to worry about just the first or second product. So it really depends on the product type. And knowing that Amazon is a pay to play, or even increasingly so, think about that for your product selection.
Definitely. No, that's really insightful points, and I appreciate you guys exploring that a little bit. I want to pass the torch to Jacob for a little bit, because he also has some very interesting marketing strategies that he employed at Glitch that I think would also be really useful to hear. So Jacob, I want to ask you, tell us a little bit more about the marketing strategies that you employed at Glitch that helped you achieve such hyper growth in a short amount of time. Like, how did you balance paid media, influencer marketing? Like, tell us a little bit more about that story.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like a preface and disclaimer too. So most most e-com brands that launch on Shopify, I would say paid media is like 80% of their marketing budget. And that's really how they start to scale. So for us, we are very different in that aspect as we've grown. And ultimately, we just paid for marketing really in a different way. So partnering with our partner Tyler, um, obviously has a massive audience on YouTube, and we paid essentially an equity to acquire customers versus cash up front. And so that allowed us to have a lot of flexibility when we launched. We were able to test a lot of different creative marketing campaigns that most people probably wouldn't test through paid or other channels where you're, paying to acquire a customer. And so for us, the idea was, instead of paying for customer acquisition costs with dollars and paid media early on, we're going to try to scale as fast as we can through Tyler and his organic audience. And then kind of the second layer to that was, how do we convert as much of his audience as possible into our own channels, such as email and SMS. And then social following too, which in my opinion is kind of a rented channel. A lot of social nowadays, maybe minus TikTok, is all pay to play. Like you're going to have to run ads to get a lot of, like, it's very rare that you can consistently have reach organically on socials. Twitter is interesting right now too, because that's starting to become more organic as well. But um, yeah, that was our initial like high level strategy, is how do we reach a lot of people early on. It really helped our search like rankings as well, because right away when we launched, we had millions of people that saw the product through Tyler and his promotion. And then our organic, we sent out a lot of PR boxes to a lot of his friends in the creator space that posted organically because they wanted to help support him and his product launch. And so we got a lot of like free impressions on organic social because of that. I think when we launched, we had like 3 or 4 million impressions across socials within like the first day or two, just from like our organic PR strategy. And that was just, we just sent out like, I think it was like 50 packages to some of his closest friends in the creator space that they also had millions of followers. And so that was kind of our strategy. But in the same token, I think it's similar. Like we just chose that route with Tyler versus like Amazon and the already built audience on Amazon, right? Like there's a lot of similarities there, I would say. So it really just depends on how you're launching your brand. I'm pretty biased towards creator owned brands, and I think they're kind of a cheat code when it comes to scaling early on versus like spending the cash to do that. And so, yeah, on a high level, that's kind of our strategy. Obviously I can dig into more things as it comes
Yeah.
up, but that's really was the approach early on.
Yeah. No, that's super helpful. And we actually had a question come in specifically for you, kind of on the social media side of things. So, this question says, do you see success marketing your products on social media? You kind of already answered this, but which platforms would you say performed the best for you? And would you advise, new Shopify sellers or new brands that are launching, which ones would you say to pay the most attention to?
So if I was starting a brand from scratch and I had to launch on Shopify and I could not partner with a creator, I would absolutely start on organic TikTok. And so our brand has not been like, we need to get better on organic social media. We get a lot of impressions, especially with content that Tyler's in, because I have no clue how the algorithm works from an organic impression standpoint on Instagram and other platforms like that. But when we have collaborative content with him, even if he doesn't repost it, we get more reach than we would of like any random content that we would post. So I would really start on TikTok. The biggest reason for TikTok is you get a lot of really quick feedback without having to spend the paid media dollars. So a lot of strategy that I've seen around paid media is like test different content on TikTok, see like post is absolutely like do a bunch of research on trends on TikTok and how you can integrate your product into it. Post as much as possible and then see which content does well, study it, note which starts to the video do well, and like usually you can get feedback on TikTok within like 24 hours. You'll see if like a video does well or not comparatively. And then you can kind of set that piece of content aside and say, okay, this would be probably a good piece of content to run paid media as well with, because organically it works on TikTok. And so YouTube Shorts is another one that I would think about when you start a brand. You can actually get some organic reach on YouTube Shorts. I actually talked with a creator recently who he grew from 0 to over 1 million subscribers in 6 months, just posting YouTube shorts on his gaming content. And it was pretty crazy. Yeah. So you can do it. It's just like, it's a lot of work and you got to get really creative. But I listened to a podcast actually today. It was from the Andrew Ferris podcast. And it was, I can't remember the name, but it's called Mini Katana is the brand. And they like scale to 8 figures just off of organic social, which is like very not typical. And so that's what I would do if I were to focus on organic social, it would be TikTok and just really trying to establish some virality there.
Absolutely.
What I find really interesting is like how you would build out the different creatives for the different platforms. Like the second I see that I'm being marketed to on TikTok, I swipe. I'm like, no. But on Amazon, you treat it so differently. Like, oh, that's a spot you actually consider that ad. Or on YouTube, you're forced to watch it for those 5 seconds. So you're kind of in a little bit. Like, I just find these different platforms fascinating. You have to build up a different advertising type for each of them and optimize it.
I think that's why Amazon and the reason why Amazon, I think conversion is so high, it's because remember, people go on Amazon because they want products to buy. Like they want to shop, right? Mm-hmm. But like when I'm on TikTok, I might want to relax, or I might want to like just look at people dancing or something. So I don't want to buy necessarily. So ads annoy me versus on Amazon, they're helping me make the buying decision. And I think that's why conversion is so much higher on Amazon.
And why it's so important on TikTok to go after that organic placement where people don't know that they're being advertised to. But
right.
Yeah.
You almost have to confuse them and like, maybe right at the end, it's like, or you can have like different headlines for different TikToks, like 5 reasons why so-and-so. One person to follow when it comes to TikTok organic and just TikTok strategy in general is, his name's Max Finn. He runs a TikTok advertising agency and puts out a lot of cool content. And then, yeah, there's just like a lot of trend research that you have to do and you have to iterate really fast, but you definitely don't want to like sell on TikTok as if you were selling for a Facebook ad. Like it's just very, very different. But you can also use those TikToks and repost them on YouTube Shorts. Like you would modify them a little bit depending on the scenario, but that's what you can use. Basically one piece of content, at least on 2 platforms. You can probably post it on Instagram Reels too. And they would all, like, you would want to make it organic to the platform and not just like copy and paste. So there'd be a little bit of work to change it, but yeah, it's still like you just never know what's going to go viral or not either. So,
and it wouldn't surprise me if Amazon starts pretty soon coming out with like seeing this trend of short form content and coming out with their own, like, because they saw the success of Instagram and Facebook, so they came out with Amazon posts. You know, like you can post a photo and have a little caption, and you can just kind of scroll and swipe. And I wouldn't be surprised if soon they come out with these short videos as well, like already cut from existing content, because they do Amazon Live, kind of this QVC, but on Amazon, if they start cutting that up into short content and trying that as an advertising platform.
I could see that happening for sure.
Definitely. Yeah, no, that was terrific, guys. Thank you so much for sharing all of your golden insight for advertising, marketing, and whatnot on each of these platforms. It's been amazing. Just moving along in the interest of time, so we can leave some time for Q&A at the end. Let's begin our 3rd round.
Never gets old, Sam. Never gets old.
No, as it shouldn't. I didn't expect it to. But anyway, our final round. Okay, we're going to talk about the supply chain. So a little less sexy than the last 2 topics, but either way, very important for both platforms. I'm going to continue with Jacob here. I'm going to lean on him to kind of talk about his experience with Shopify. So Jacob, what sort of supply chain pitfalls and challenges are there associated with operating a Shopify store? Like in your experience, like how did you navigate them, and what sort of advice could you offer the audience as to how to successfully manage their own supply chain when it comes to a D2C platform like Shopify?
Yeah, that's a great question. And one thing I'll say just in general about supply chain is you obviously have to have an audience and a market to sell a product, but supply chain is undoubtedly just as important or even more important if you have that market, because you can really run your business into the ground if you don't take supply chain seriously and do a ton. Like when I launched in e-commerce, I had no supply chain experience. I came from like literally a 0 skill knowledge base before we launched Glitch. So I just kind of had to go learn it all. And a lot of it was trial by fire, learn from mistakes, learn how to negotiate with suppliers, learn how to pick a supplier. When it comes to Amazon specifically, one thing that you don't have the luxury of is or not Amazon. I think I said Amazon. When it comes to Shopify specifically, one thing you don't have the luxury
is that a
of.
point for us?
Right.
It might be. Yeah. You don't have Amazon fulfillment. So you would have to either decide if you want to fulfill all of your products in-house, which could save you some money early on and let you control supply chain a little bit more. But the moment your product starts to scale, shipping out of your apartment doesn't really become feasible because it's just too crazy. I know some people actually do it, and depends on the product, the size of the product, etc. Like you might be able to get away with shipping even upwards of 1,000 orders plus a month from your garage or apartment or whatever it is, if it's a really small product that ships in a padded envelope. But for us, like, tubs are pretty big to store, and we had to figure out, like, how do we want to ship this as we scale. And we knew, like, we would have a lot of traction early on just from Tyler's audience. And so we had to figure out, like, okay, what we need to find a 3PL, third-party logistics company, to house our inventory, ship product for us, connect with our Shopify store. There was a big learning curve there. So we started working with ShipBob early on, and they connect with your Shopify store, but there's still a lot of, like, you got to be somewhat tech savvy to integrate with ShipBob and any other 3PL for that matter, and integrate with their warehouse management software. And you got to make sure orders are flowing through. If you have any bundled products, you have to figure that out on both sides of the coin, usually on Shopify and on your 3PL provider side. And then, it's just a matter of, once you have it plugged in, then you just, like, trust your 3PL to ship the product and not lose your stuff, and et cetera, which I think this challenge comes whether you're on Amazon or Shopify, but it can be really, really tough to navigate inventory management, just making sure that you're forecasting enough inventory. There's just a lot of variables in supply chain that, like, if I could go back and start over, I think that we would scale probably 4 times faster than we did early on, and ultimately not waste a lot of money doing it because of the things that I've learned through that. So yeah, it's internal fulfillment. You have more control. You can see where all your product is. It's too much of a commitment, I think, early on to lease a warehouse. Like, you have to usually commit to at least a year. Most warehouse space, depending on where you live, is like, sometimes it's 2 to 3 year lease, where it's like, if you just launched 2 months ago and have really good traction, are you sure you want to commit to that amount of time and that amount of space? It's just like a really big commitment. It's more of a closed door commitment. So I kind of operate, especially with supply chain, is like closed door and open door decisions. And so if it's an open door decision, I can easily change direction if I need to. But if it's a closed door decision, like putting in a huge order of inventory and signing a purchase order and sending a deposit to your supplier, well, that money's gone and you're committed to that amount of inventory. And, like, whether you like it or not, it's really hard to change after that. And so, yeah, a little bit all over the place, but that's kind of my thoughts on supply chain in general. Dave or Ryan, if you want to poke into that or dig deeper there, add some stuff, I think you would have some good feedback too.
Well, I think what's super interesting is how similar Amazon is, right? Like, supply chain is the same for all sellers until, it reaches almost the customer, the one step before the customer. And that's one of the reasons why I initially said I want to do FBA, is I like the fact that whether I'm a small seller or a big seller, I have the same service provider that's helping me ship these units and taking care of my customers, right? And I knew that I could then scale from being a small seller to a big seller in a really quick amount of time, because the team that's handling me is capable of doing both. And that's what I liked about Amazon.
That makes sense.
Very nice. Yeah, I mean, that might also be, good to continue with you guys and with the Devan guys specifically. And, I'd like to hear more, if you could elaborate on some of the supply chain problems that you face, some of the hurdles that come along with FBA that, might not be advertised when, so you see it online, like, oh, start your own business, FBA, things like that. I'd love to just hear your take. Like, what did you come across that was more than meets the eye, and what other challenges came with FBA that, you may not have considered when starting?
Yeah, it's like there's pros and cons for sure. I mean, like you said, it's this spark, it's the shiny thing of you just send all your inventory to FBA, and they do all the storing, picking, packing, shipping. They handle returns, so you don't even have to worry about that, right? So you relinquish that control, which can be a good thing, but also a bad thing, because they're not always so transparent with like where your inventory is and why it's taking so long. And so it's giving up control, but like we've definitely had some headaches along the way, as I'm sure Dave is about to dive into. But all in all, it's good. It was really our only option, because we live in Germany, and so it's not an option for us to be on the ground in North America actually handling our own inventory. So really, FBA and the services they offer are really like the best thing for us.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are, let's say, 3PLs that could do similar things from us abroad, right? But like Amazon FBA, I think what really makes it so nice is the customers. So like, if they don't trust you as a new brand, like let's say we launch a brand new brand, a customer may not trust us, they don't know us. But if you're selling on Amazon, they do trust Amazon, because Amazon is big and they take care of their customers. They don't always take care of their sellers, unfortunately, as we know, but they take care of their customers. So if the customer wants to return it, hey, no questions asked, return it. You get your money back, right? The seller will pay it. So it's one of those, we wanted that Prime badge on our listing. So we said, we're going to go FBA. And some of the real like hurdles that we had was, one, learning the game, because it's not just you have inventory, on the top right, we have this inventory performance index. Literally starting March 1st. So like next week, they're launching this capacity limit, right? And like we just started diving into like all the fine print about what this means. And you can bid for more, but it depends on how many you actually sell. And it seems like they make it so complicated every time. And you don't always know which factors actually affect your score that you're getting, how much is it actually going to be. And a lot of people get surprised by some of these because they don't read the fine print of Amazon Seller Central terms of services for each part. So the hardest thing for us initially was learning all of the Amazon inventory stuff. What does IPI mean? What are the storage fees? When do they increase? And then originally what we actually did, and I think this is a mistake, and I think, people listening maybe avoid this. We wanted to reduce complexity of our business, because remember, that was my idea. It's like, use Amazon, less complexity, it's good. So we send all our units to Amazon. The problem is, if those units don't sell as well as you expected, well, now they're at Amazon, and it's hard to get out, or it's expensive to get out. So what I would always recommend now is saying, if you're not sure, especially how to forecast because you're starting out, use a 3PL. Right? Or ask your manufacturer in wherever you're producing it, hey, do you mind if I store half of these here for the first month or two for free? So you get free storage. Most manufacturers will say, yeah, no problem. You can store half of them here, because, Q4 storage fees are 3 times the normal storage fees on Amazon, which is crazy. Most 3PLs, it's like the same storage fees throughout the year. So that's a huge advantage of using a 3PL. And then what's crazy is now that after 270 days of goods being at Amazon, you get this aged inventory surcharge, which is, 2 times as much. And it's on top of your regular storage fees. So it's just a surcharge. You pay your regular storage, and then on top of that, you pay 2x of your storage. And it actually goes up to 8x, which is absolutely insane. And at that point, you're forced to remove them because you can't afford it. Like it wouldn't be a smart business decision to keep it in there. So I think that kind of sums it up. Amazon has a great fulfillment center. You don't get a lot of insight all the time of what's going on, and that has cost us money. Like once our products were sidelined at a supplemental fulfillment center, which they don't even talk about, and it cost us
never heard of that before. No.
Yeah. So it's a bit tricky, but customers trust it. They are able to handle small and big sellers, which is a huge bonus. And one other really nice thing, and I think that's the last quick topic point, is that it does allow you to grow as long as your product meets the requirements for the countries to all of North America right away. So you get shipping from your US inventory into Canada and into Mexico, because the customer acts as the importer of that product. So you as a business owner, it's super simple to scale to 2 other countries really quickly, as long as your product meets the requirements. So like for Canada, you need some French on the packaging, for example.
Interesting. All right, guys, that was awesome. That was a really spectacular 3 rounds. What a good fight. What a good discussion.
thing.
I'll hit this one more time for good measure.
I was gonna add something. I was gonna add one more thing.
Go
on the
ahead.
supply
Yeah,
chain
Jacob.
side
One.
that I thought of.
Please continue.
Early on when you launch a brand, in my opinion, Ryan or David, you might maybe agree or disagree. I would love to hear your feedback either way, but I think supply chain efficiency is always greater than cost savings early on, unless the cost savings are crazy comparatively. So for example, like you should look for a supplier that can give you lower minimum order quantities, that have better lead times, that have better terms for you versus just like a cheaper supplier. I think that's always, because as you scale, then you have leverage, and then you can go back to your suppliers and you can negotiate better rates, or you can look at switching a supplier that works with a little bit bigger brands. And in the supplement world in general, there's a lot of contract manufacturers across the United States, and there's just a lot to choose from. So finding a supplier, developing that relationship, understanding that efficiency is always better than cost savings, within reason, of course.
Yeah, and I think we would definitely agree on that. Like we always say, we're not going to cheap out on the small parts. What a lot of people forget is like you literally charge $1 more, $1 more on your product, $1, and that's on the top end. That's all profit, right? And like you can, that's like the equivalent of saving a couple cents on the bottom end, so for the profit margin. So we really think, or no, sorry, I said that backwards, right? You would have to save a lot more at the bottom end, like to get the same amount of profit on top. So I inverse that, but you get the idea. Just add more to the price of the product that you're selling. That's going to be a lot better than trying to save, because if you try to take savings on the supply chain, they're probably going to take shortcuts. There's probably going to be headaches. And it's the same with, and this is something against Amazon, maybe it's like, I love Amazon and I hate Amazon. And I think every seller agrees, right? It's a love-hate relationship. And they have these new innovative supply chain solutions that they have, Amazon Global Shipping Logistics, where they will ship it for you. But then you're dealing with Seller Central, like it's Amazon, right? And we've heard nightmare stories of like, then it's delayed. But if you have your own freight forwarder, you might be able to put a bit more pressure on it than if it's Amazon. Yeah. Or now they have this upstream inventory placement, right? Where the warehouse distribution, where they automatically feed it. All that works great, but it still relies on Amazon forecast, which, Ryan and I, from our own experience, have seen hasn't been that accurate, their forecasting system. And then there's delays, and staying a little bit in control, I think, has a huge advantage on your bottom line.
Yeah. And one thing we didn't really touch on, big difference between the two platforms is just how reliant you are on reviews and customer reviews on Amazon, right? And coming back to the point about, cutting costs at your supplier just to save a few cents, if that leads to bad reviews on Amazon, your product's dead on arrival. Good luck selling a product that has 3.5 or less star ratings. So, you have to be, and I'd be interested to hear, like, Jacob, how you guys generate reviews on Shopify, because on Amazon, you can't really contact the customer. You just have to create a great product and hope that they're inclined to leave a positive review. You can only request a review. You can't, incentivize. It's really clear in the terms of service. So yeah, don't cheap out on your product, because it's going to bite you later.
Yeah, on the review side for us, we have a review app that we have plugged in, and I think it's Yotpo for reviews, and then it's just kind of like you set up the initial setup and links with your email marketing platform, and then it's kind of set it and forget it. So they get an order, and then 14 days later they get a request to review it.
Jacob, you don't have to answer this about your personal settings, but does that app allow you to filter the reviews? So like, I know that a lot of like websites, they'll only show the 5 stars, 4 stars, and anything below they won't even show on their website, because the apps that they use for review requests allows you to filter not to display that.
I think it does. To be candid, I don't really pay much attention to I don't really even look at reviews. The only reason I look at reviews, and I look at our low reviews to try to make the product better. And right, so, yeah. Or like look at the high reviews to double down on some of those benefits. But I think there's ways to, I know there's some ways where you can't just fully falsify it, but I'm sure there's some stores out there. We don't do this because I believe we have an awesome product, and like we have a shower of 4 and 5 star reviews because of it. But I think there's ways to display it a little bit differently versus, I'm sure on Amazon, it's a lot less easy to make shift review issues, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Great insights again, guys. And I hate to cut off the awesome conversation here, but I do want to save a little bit of time for Q&A because we have a few questions coming in. Now I've intentionally left like 9 minutes. We'll try to get to all of them. If I don't, we do have some contact information where you can get in touch with the van or Glitch to continue to ask questions in case you guys have any or want to connect with them. And that's on the next slide. But anyway, we have one question from an attendee for Jacob as it pertains to Shopify. And the question is simply, how do I protect my brand on Shopify?
That's a great question.
A little open-ended, but feel free to answer how you feel.
So obviously depends on the product. If you're drop shipping on Shopify, and maybe this question's more tailored to drop shipping, at least it's what it seems like to me, to protect like a product. But ultimately you just make a really good product. In the supplement space, it's like, we actually pride ourselves on transparency. You can see exactly how much of each ingredient is in our product versus there's some supplement companies and products that hide behind proprietary blends. And so they put a total amount of ingredient or total amount of like the grams or milligrams per that blend. And then they can just list out the ingredients without the individual ingredient levels. So in theory, like you could go and copy our formula and launch it, but that's like really how you protect a Shopify product is by brand. So you build a community, you build really good brand, really good content around it. You establish yourself with creators early on, and you just really build hype around your brand and what your brand stands for. And there could be the exact same product and people will come buy from your brand versus that other product because they love the brand and then they also love the product. So that's how I would do it.
Excellent. And kind of in that same vein, we have another question coming in, touches on Shopify and Amazon. If you already have a Shopify store, can you also sell on Amazon? Do they do print on demand like Shopify, or can I leverage what I'm currently doing in Shopify?
So in general, I think if you're selling on Amazon or Shopify, it's so important. So I know we kind of made this look like a battle of the two, but I think any serious e-commerce seller realizes the benefit of having both sites up. And what we've noticed is when we would run, let's say, some external ads to our Shopify store, then what would actually happen is that our Amazon sales increased. And the reason is that people get the ad from your Shopify store, they see your brand, they like your product, but out of convenience, they're like, let me see if I can get this on Amazon and add it to the basket of the other 20,000 things I'm buying this week on Amazon and just, buy from them. And it, because of that trust issue as well that I mentioned earlier. So definitely think that, yeah, if you have one store, do it on the other one as well. Super beneficial to help each other. Print on demand. So Amazon does now do custom made products, right? Like we saw that you can do like custom t-shirts and stuff. Whether or not for a seller it's print on demand, I'm not sure, because we
still believe you have to fulfill that yourself, right? But they offer at least the interface where a customer can customize the design they like. But at the end of the day, that final design is being sent to you as the manufacturer, and you have to still produce that and ship it out. So therefore you might, whether you have the Prime badge or not on your listing could be dependent on your shipping reliability, but yeah.
Yeah, I know that Shopify has that app integration, right? Where you can you just have your design and it integrates to the print on demand and then sends a product, which is really cool. So Amazon doesn't have that third-party integration. That I know. Hope that answers it.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's awesome. Moving along to another question is, how have your marketing expenses fluctuated in the last couple of years? How can a new seller take this into account for cash flow and margins? So again, kind of touching on both platforms. I'll let you guys answer individually.
That's a good question.
I mean,
go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll just, it was really, we sold, giftable products, right? And so we had these huge, massive peaks throughout the year, Valentine's Day, Mother's Day, Christmas, where we saw, it didn't matter what ads we were running, they were converting, and we were just throwing gasoline on the fire, you couldn't spend enough on ads. Between the peaks, conversion rates lower, our tacos creep up a little bit. So it was kind of this ebb and flow back and forth, but we would always look at our numbers at the end of the year as as the indicator. Because if you just look at a certain window throughout the year, it's not telling the whole story. So that was us, very specific case with very seasonal products. Yeah.
And I think looking at the big picture is also important for when you're launching a product, right? So it's important to recognize that any product you sell has different life cycles to it. You'll have a launch phase where you're going to have to get some attention to it. Then you might have a cruise phase, and we all have a sunset phase where products tend to die off, right? And if you're saying my objective for the product is to make sure that it is profitable, you might want to overspend a little bit at the beginning and not worry about your ad spend, right? Say, as long as my first production run is, let's say, break even, but I'm learning the game, I'm getting the product out, I'm building the brand a little bit. The second, or the first round, you might even lose money. The second production run, you go break even. And by your third production run, you're making enough money, and hopefully sustainably, that you can make your money back.
Nice.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jacob.
I was just going to say, a good resource for this to think about budgeting for marketing would be, so it's a guy named Taylor Holiday, runs a really big e-commerce agency called Common Thread Collective, and he has basically coined this term called 4-quarter accounting. And the premise of it is really 25% of your budget should go to customer acquisition costs, and this can spread depending on the product and your margin, etc. And then 25% should go to cost of delivery, which is like your cost of goods sold plus any variable costs that are associated with delivering that product to a customer. And then 25% should go to fixed costs, so salaries, software, rent, all of the costs that aren't going to fluctuate based on volume. And then you have 25% net profit left. And that's kind of like the gold standard, I think, in e-commerce, to think about how you budget for customer acquisition or marketing.
So what I think about it's super interesting about that is that Amazon is too expensive to do that, right? But because you're piggybacking on the largest marketplace and best fulfillment center worldwide, right? So they're expensive, and that's where it's important that you think of organic ranking. So what I think is crazy about organic ranking is it's free rent for your business. So imagine you had a store, like a retail store on Fifth Avenue, where you have all that traffic daily and you don't pay rent for it. That's absolutely insane in the business world, but that's what Amazon is. That's your organic rank. And you might have to pay to get that spot. Well, once you have it, with a little bit of maintenance to maintain it, you're getting free rent. And then, if the margins on the profit margins are a bit lower, what Ryan and I always like to look at is how much profit are we making, right? So like if we make $1 profit, but sold 1 million units, that's $1 million, right? And, we might say, okay, let's sell less units, but make more profit per unit. At the end of the day, all we really care about is how much money is in our pockets at the end of the day.
Totally. I think that's where you could shift some of those fixed costs in the relative nature of the 25% down a lot, because your fixed costs are probably a lot lower comparatively.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's true.
All right. Another question we have is, how do you perform data analysis for a Shopify website? Can you use Helium 10 or Jungle Scout?
Good question.
Yeah. So there's a few plugins that I've seen. Candidly, I actually don't pay much attention to our competitors. I really focus on making the best product possible for our current customers and attracting more customers through that strategy. That's not to say that I'm oblivious to other competitors and what they're doing in the space. I do look at things every now and again, but I'm really not like spying on exact quantities of inventory, etc. I don't know that you can get exact things, but there is one plugin that I use quite often. It's SimilarWeb. And you can see like store traffic, and it's just really, I'm just more curious about like what kind of traffic is this store driving on Shopify. And then you can see like different apps and plugins that they have. So I will use that to see like, oh, I like this. I like the way they have their checkout on this, or I like their, VIP program here. I wonder what they use, and it'll actually show you like which apps they use. So there's a few out there, but SimilarWeb's the one I use most often to look for different things there.
Very nice. And you said that was called SimilarWeb? That was the name of it?
SimilarWeb, yeah. And then there's other ones out there. So really, if you just Google like Shopify store spying tool, like there's a few Chrome extensions out there that you can get.
Gotcha. Very nice. Well, that pretty much brings us to the close. Guys, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining and offering your insights to the audience. I got a lot out of it. I'm sure many others did as well. So thank you again. We look forward to doing another one soon. And if anyone in the audience wants to get in touch with Glitch or the Devan guys, please take note of their websites as well as the QR code and make an effort to reach out to them. I'm sure they'd love to hear from you. Other than that, any other closing comments, guys? Or are we good to wrap it up?
No, I just want to thank you, Sam and 8Fig, for hosting us.
Of course.
Yeah. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, 8Fig team.
And Jacob for a well-fought battle.
I think it was a tie.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. We'll do it again soon. All right. Take it easy, everyone.